Popchops, pop music you haven't heard but probably should have on Joy 94.9.
You are on Popchops, and tonight we are celebrating the beautiful Tegan and Sara. If you want to have your say tonight, you can do so on 0427 Joy 949. Now, Andy,
yeah,
what a stupid week to go to Indonesia for a wedding.
I know. So Tegan and Sara are one of my favourite bands of all time, and this happened to be the week that we got an interview with them. What the hell?
I managed to rep without my partner in crime and spoke to the beautiful Sara, who joined us via phone in the Joy 94.9 studios. We had a long chat, so we're going to be hearing snippets of that interview tonight. Really informative. I mean, these girls are just so incredibly smart.
They're so talkative as well.
So talkative.
So friendly, which I love.
Yeah, and just so informed, so articulate.
It's such a cliche, but fame hasn't really changed them. They seem really down to earth, really lovely.
Yeah, indeed. So let's take a listen now. This is our first snippet of our interview with Sara of Tegan and Sara. You are on Popchops.
Hey everyone, it's Sara from Tegan and Sara, and you're listening to Popchops.
Never been the type to leave much room for anyone to speak. Always been about what I want, listen to me while I preach. Never been the kind to make much space for emotions in a fight. Anything I didn't want to hear, I just preached till I was right. But you got me on the line.
Hi Sara, how you going?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Amazing. Thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Now, our show on Joy is called Popchops, and we celebrate pop music as like a creative, meaningful form of expression that isn't vapid or a guilty pleasure. So I just wanted to ask you first if the music that you make reflects the music that you listen to, and if so, how do you feel about the pop music landscape in 2016?
You know, I do listen to pop music, so it certainly reflects what kind of production and songwriting and presentation that we are interested in with our band. I do have a very specific, I guess you could call it like a curated musical influence. Like I don't exclusively listen to pop music, and I don't listen to everything that's being made in pop music. Like I'm not a connoisseur, certainly, but I try to have a diverse, I guess, musical spectrum that I'm listening to, partly because I just think on a almost subconscious level, the things that I'm listening to are sort of filtered back out when I'm writing music. And so I, over the years, have found that if I'm listening too much to a certain type of music or band, I'll almost start to feel like I'm copying their style. And it's totally not always purposeful. In fact, there have been times where I've purposefully tried to do something that someone else is doing because I think it's awesome, and then I'll be like, that doesn't sound anything like that. What the hell? So, I sort of feel like it's a disciplined, kind of nerdy approach, but I like to make sure that I'm listening to a lot of different types of music, just for lyrical inspiration and just sort of absorbing different types of melodies and different types of arrangements and structures, and I just feel like it makes me a more interesting songwriter.
Now I wanna write a love song, even though you never ever asked me for one. Write you a letter, send sweet poems, ask for forgiveness, tell you I was wrong. Sit myself down, rein my pride in, start to focus, change who I've been. Give me a second, let me U-turn, write you the love song you've earned. Give me a second, let me U-turn, write you the love song you've earned.
And it can sometimes be the case in your industry that indie artists are criticised for their success when, they hit a certain level of fame. You call your embrace of a more mainstream sound stepping up, not selling out. So what was your response to fans that didn't really understand your transition when you made Heartthrob?
I think there's a knee-jerk reaction to feel defensive or maybe even doubt yourself or question your intentions or your choice to change your sound. But I think all artists go through that. I think even if we were making records that were similar to the ones that we had made in the mid part of our career, there's the records I sort of see as being, the Tegan and Sara that a lot of people wish that we still sounded like records like So Jealous and The Con, and even to some degree Sainthood. Even last night, we were playing at Splendor in the Grass, and the material from that part of our career gets such a tremendous response, and we get it. Like, we totally get it. We were really emotional. I think we had really hit our stride. Those songs are super solid, and I still stand behind them. I don't know, the thing that we're trying to emphasize is that we still see ourselves as being those same kinds of songwriters where we are emotional, we're telling, stories or expressing ourselves in a very certain or a very specific way. But I just have grown out of the approach that we were using back then. Yeah. I don't really, I'm not saying that I won't ever play guitar again. I just sort of moved away from it. I really like the clean production that we're using now, and I understand that sometimes then removes some of the emotion or some of the texture that a lot of people like, and even some of the idiosyncrasies that maybe we didn't even intentionally have. Like, we weren't purposefully trying to do certain things that people will say, like, oh, I loved how your arrangements were really strange. They weren't necessarily pop structures. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if I was even purposely doing that. I think I just had a limited skill level, and but I do realize that there's something very special and unique about those songs in that era, and so I think it makes sense. Also, too, a lot of the people who loved those records, they were our age. They were discovering us at a time where we were discovering some of these emotions or some of these anxieties, and I think we really connected in that moment. There was a real pivotal kind of oh my God, we're in our mid-20s and we're starting to worry about death and what are our lives all about. And I think there's a sort of post-college existential crisis that a lot of young adults go through, and we happen to be going through that too, and so we really connected with people. Well, I'm 35 years old now. It would be hard for me to go back to that place and write songs that spoke to those same people. All I can do is authentically write about what's happening for me in my own life right now.
Heartthrob became an obvious influence for a variety of pop records, including Taylor Swift's 1989 record. What was it like knowing that pop artists cite that album as a musical influence or direction that they want their own music to take?
It's very flattering to have anybody like us. It didn't even have to be on the scale of Taylor Swift or Katy Perry, both artists that I really respect, and was, very flattered that they liked the record and the songs. And to be honest with you, I try not to get too caught up in thinking about what other people like about us or think about us in that world, just because I think it's so fickle. I'm not saying that those artists themselves are fickle, but it's trend. Suddenly to find ourselves on trend after 15 years of kind of being off trend, I sort of my initial reaction was actual panic, because I thought, oh God, if people are starting to like us now, does that mean that we're destined to be not liked again in the nearest future? And we talk about that a little bit right now, just because Love You to Death has sort of been our most successful media record. We feel like a lot of journalists are very nice to us, and we're getting good reviews, and we've been like, oh God, we might be in trouble. This might signal something really bad, just because for so many years those same people weren't that interested in us, and yet we really experienced a very, original and special career, and we sort of learned to cherish that and feel very humbled by that. So then all of a sudden to have people being like, oh yeah, we really like you, I was like, oh God, we're in deep shit.
say, it's interesting you say that, journalists are nice to you now, because you've been in the industry for almost 2 decades, throughout which you've experienced a slew of, sexist and sometimes homophobic comments from mainstream media like Pitchfork and NME, maybe without even realising that they were doing it. How has the way that the media talks about you now changed in that time with relation to those things?
Well, I think there was at some point a shift, and people, maybe around the con, the end of So Jealous and the con, like 2005, 2006, I remember thinking, well, maybe we don't get, like, the top critics picks or the year-end lists or whatever, popularity stuff that I cared about. But I did notice a shift in the way that people would speak to us. And there was a sort of, I guess, in some cases a begrudging acknowledgement. In other cases, I felt like it was very authentic. But I do remember people being like, wow, you guys have really been through through the ringer, and there was a sort of noticeable respect that people started to show us, and I remember being relieved. And I thought, I can deal with this. I can handle just having people be nice to us and respect us. I don't care if they necessarily love the band. I just was so exhausted from feeling like we had to constantly defend the band and also highlight for people, wow, that was a really homophobic thing. Like, you may not have known, but when you said, X, Y, and Z, like, that was actually really offensive. And I wish that you would consider, the way you talk about women and gay people. And, I just felt fatigued. And so around the middle part of our career, I remember thinking, okay, it's shifting, something's changing, and I felt relief. So now it's still sometimes subtle and it's there, but I do feel like there is a honest willingness to, like, I don't know, like, to not use that kind of language or those lazy comparisons or those sometimes, like, accidental homophobia. Like, I know that's a terrible thing to say, but, like, I think sometimes people don't even know they're doing it, and right. I sort of try to keep an open mind and realize, like, look, everybody's not fully up to date or up to speed on their education around homophobia or sexism, and I try not to get too worked up about it, because for the most part, I think people have really changed, so...
We're obviously a gay radio station, and, supporting gay and, any member of the LGBTI community on our station is really important. But sometimes it seems like there's a glass ceiling for LGBTI artists in the music industry. Do you feel like that's the case? And then do you have a method of combating that in any way?
I think that at the beginning of our career, it was sort of like we got hit over the head right away with this idea of, like, you are a very specific voice for a very specific group of people. And we sort of were confused by that. I had never really thought about music, like when I was a fan, I never thought about music being super compartmentalized. I never thought, oh, I'm gay, so I should only listen to gay music, or music made by gay people. And I never once, as a teenager, when I was really in the height of my music fandom, I don't remember ever thinking, oh, I'm listening to straight music or straight people's music. And so it was bizarre and confusing to suddenly be in the music industry and be labeled a gay band, because I was like, is that even a thing? Like, when did this happen? And it really annoyed us. But then on the other hand, there was this conundrum, because I liked being out, and I liked having people see us as role models, or, I recognized that there had sort of been a lack of queer artists to look up to, or like it's still sometimes people will say, oh, can you make a playlist of all bands, gay bands that you like? And I'll be like, oh God, okay, who's gay? Like, it's funny, it's like, it's not always the first thing that people think of, and so to suddenly be one of those bands that people think of as being gay, I sort of feel both annoyed and limited, and then on the other hand, I feel really proud and happy.
Right.
So I think the way to combat it is to just talk about it, to say, like, look, I don't think that we are a band that only gay people can relate to. In fact, sometimes I haven't felt like gay people relate to us at all. And then on the other hand, I think, you know what, I'm really proud to be gay, and I think that it's important to talk about our identity in the mainstream, because so few other identities are discussed. I mean, it's just incredibly common to see heterosexual people portrayed in film and television and art and on the radio and on billboards and in advertising and marketing. I mean, we never think, oh boy, I'm tired of seeing straight people buying cars or walking down the street or whatever. And so sometimes I think, okay, well, I want to push my queerness into the mainstream, because I think it should be a little bit more diverse. And so, we walk a fine line. We try to be ourselves without making it a sort of mandated thing.
Now, getting to the album, one of the best albums of this year, in my opinion.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Now, you guys said that you wrote Love You to Death with genius pop producer Greg Kurstin in mind after the successful collaboration you had with him on Heartthrob. What did you learn from Heartthrob that you used then in your approach to writing and recording Love You to Death?
I mean, we certainly hit a stride with Greg Kurstin making Heartthrob, and because it was sort of, I guess, like a bit of an experiment, there was a part of me that knew as soon as we finished Heartthrob that hopefully we would be able to make the next record with Greg exclusively. I think knowing his style and the way he approached things, now it was sort of a challenge to think, okay, well, how can we sort of up the ante? And it's been wonderful. I mean, he's just so talented. It's sort of ridiculous, and he's got such a open-minded, really eccentric approach to music. I mean, I think for a lot of people, pop music is sort of dismissed as this like synthetic, vapid, I don't know, like plastic music. And
totally.
I think what is so beautiful about what Greg does is, he works exclusively on, analog keyboards and uses instrumentation that is historically, musically exciting. But, he does fundamentally funnel that into the computer technological world that so many of us are making music in right now. So there is a hybrid approach. I mean, it's not like everything is in the box. He's still using, tried and true studio behaviors, but then he's able to sort of I don't know, it's like a real musical cyborg. And some of the limitations that I remember feeling when we were exclusively an analog band, spending days miking up drum kits and editing things and splicing together things and doing guitar take after guitar take or whatever. There's actually something that for me would get really artistically stuck in the studio waiting, just actually quite literally waiting for things to be sorted out or figured out or rooted a different way, or, oh geez, we don't really like that kick drum, I guess we'll spend another 2 hours figuring it out. There's something very unblocked about Greg because of the way that he works. Every idea that's coming, he's able to get it down. Or if we have ideas, there's no, oh, hold on a second, let me spend a couple of hours figuring out what the keyboard sound should be for your idea. It's just here, throw the idea down, we'll figure it out later. Either we'll like that sound or we'll put it on a different keyboard or whatever. And so I've actually found it to be almost like a very cathartic sort of stream of consciousness kind of writing and creative process. So I totally love working with him and working with him in mind when I'm writing.
And you've also had writing sessions with Carly Rae Jepsen, who we consider pop royalty on our show. The collaboration had us pretty excited at the time, but none of those songs made her album Emotion. So is that just a reality of the industry when sessions don't amount to anything usable for whatever reason?
I like to think of all the writing we do that doesn't necessarily end up anywhere as being, productive and creatively stimulating. To be honest, Tegan did a lot of the writing with Carly and one of the producers that she happened to be collaborating with, who we were friends with. And we both left those sessions and that experience with a positive vibe. It wasn't about, oh, if these songs don't make it, we're going to feel like we wasted our time. I really enjoy Carly. She's so smart. She's got a great approach to collaboration. She's really good at it, and it doesn't surprise me that she worked with so many different types of writers and producers. She's great at it, and she clearly gets a kick out of being in the room with different kinds of creative types. And for us, that's not the way we normally work, and so it was actually a great learning process for us. Tegan and I don't even usually write with each other, let alone perfect strangers in a room. So I have nothing but amazing vibes for Carly. I love the record. The stuff that Tegan and, well, I mean, I worked on it a little bit, but the stuff that Tegan and Carly did together was great, but hearing the album, I can see why those songs didn't necessarily make it. I think that they were really cool, but they didn't necessarily sound like or feel like the album, and I think it's fantastic. I specifically really love the stuff that she does with Dev from Blood Orange. I think he's got such great vibe, and her style and his style really work well together. So yeah, I think these writing sessions and these creative collaborations, if you're going in thinking that they have to turn into, album songs or big hits or whatever, it can be really frustrating. We just look at it like, hey, this is just fun, and if something comes out of it, great, and if nothing comes out of it, we'll have learned a new skill or we'll have worked with someone really cool.
Now, you're doing a Beyonce and shining a spotlight on every song on your Love You to Death record by making a music video for each song, turning it into a visual album. What inspired that decision?
Well, sometimes it's a bit like, sometimes it feels tacky to talk about money, but the truth is that although we feel like we're a successful band, our budgets are fairly modest for videos, and often we make 2 videos. I mean, that's really sort of been the average for each album. We'll have one single that we really put a lot of energy into, and then maybe we'll have a follow-up second single, and maybe we'll do like a third video, but we'll do it for like peanuts, nothing. So instead of taking that approach with this album, we looked at the budget for 2 songs, what we would normally spend on 2 different videos, and we carved it up and looked at how we could economically and with a sort of frugal approach, make a video for every song. And instead of, blowing the budget on 2 big videos, we decided we would give an opportunity to a bunch of different creative types to collaborate with us and make a visual component for each song. And that seemed more fun to us than, just sort of rolling the dice and hoping that we got 2 great visuals, for the album cycle. And it's been really cool. We didn't want to work with, the usual suspects, and which is nothing against the people making music videos, but a lot of times it ends up being, people who we've worked with in the past have been fantastic, but it is similar to a lot of parts of our business. You get a lot of like dudes who are making music videos, and you're getting a lot of like straight dudes who are making music videos. And so our approach was, let's try to find someone for every song that doesn't sort of fit that. Like we were like queer people, women, people of color, like anybody who just basically isn't like a straight dude. And,
amazing.
And the straight dudes will be fine. Like straight music making or music video making dudes will be great. They're not going to starve. But so it was really fun to sort of like force ourselves to go out there and find creative partners who didn't necessarily fit the mold for the traditional music video making world, I guess.
And how did you guys choose Boyfriend as the first single from the record?
We kind of do the same sort of approach every album, like even from our like very first 1999 album. Like you finish the thing and you sort of have an idea of like which songs are kind of standing out, and then we'll sort of, without really signaling like to someone, oh, we're thinking Boyfriend, which one are you thinking? We'll just sort of send out what we think are sort of like the top songs that are sort of standing out to us, and we'll send them to, a group of people. Like some people are industry people, some are friends and family, some are creative people that we collaborate with, and sort of from that we'll take a sort of a vote, I guess you could say. And generally, the consensus is pretty much in line with ours. And so we kind of had this idea that it would be Boyfriend or Stop Desire. And I'm really glad we led with Boyfriend. I think it's a unique version of a pop song that is not necessarily new. Like, I think the structure and the vibe and the sound of Boyfriend is not necessarily something that's groundbreaking, but I think the message is, and I think that we wanted to lead with that. And even though it wasn't necessarily like a smash in the States like Closer was, it felt like this is something different, and it's something special, and it's something unique, and I just felt really glad we led with that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for talking to me today, Sarah. Enjoy your shows in Melbourne.
Thank you so much. It was great to speak with you.